policies from the Prime Minister that have failed our time. They have failed our people.
Just when you thought everything was done with the BC election, not so fast. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we're talking about BC election here and David Eby's connection to the Chinese Communist Party. Was there some foreign interference there? I don't know. We've got Sam Cooper, who's a well-known journalist who breaks a lot of big stories. He broke the story just maybe a week and a half ago in Ottawa, along with Kevin Vaughan, regarding 4 of the 11 traitors to Canada, ones that were compromised wittingly or unwittingly. And when he mentioned all this information, he mentioned David Eby and his connections, but we've got some more information on that because he dropped some more information today. So first off, we're talking about this. Sam Cooper, breaking news investigative journalist who revealed China's election interference in federal elections, says there was a significant CCP affiliated election interference in support of Premier David Eby, the NDP Premier of BC, who narrowly won the re-election last month. So we've been having recounts going on here. First off, let's just get into that. There's people breaking this down. We're not going to get into the weeds of this, but you've got this account here is breaking down the numbers and with the different dates and says, you know, there's 30 votes too many, like the numbers don't add up. And one of the writings, it was only 22 votes that won it for the NDP. Very close election. But then what ended up happening is you had stuff like this. It says BC election says it has found a ballot box from Prince George Mackenzie that was not counted on election night, October 19th. Approximately 861 votes misplaced and has applied for judicial recount in that riding. Human error blamed. Also found data entry errors affecting the votes in 69 electoral districts, but says was small and did not affect the outcomes. This stinks like foreign interference and election interference. What we got dropping from Sam Cooper here is this here. David Eby paid Beijing agent $20,000 of BC taxpayer money. Elections Canada CEO illegally met with Liberal NDP staffers to change the election laws. First up, let's just recap. This is Sam Cooper here, what he said just a week and a half ago when he was doing this press conference.
Firstly, my book recounts reporting on a 2020 tape recording provided to me, where Senator Yuen Pao-Wu is heard in a 47-minute private briefing with the Canada Committee 100 Society. This group included an individual officially listed in a Chinese United Front Overseas Leaders Group. The Canada Committee 100 Society is led in Vancouver by Ding Guo, a journalist who is also an advisor to British Columbia Premier David Eby.
So Ding Guo is the advisor to David Eby. This just dropped a few hours ago, it says 3 hours ago, regarding the recounts in BC.
Breaking news, it is official. Nearly 3 weeks after BC's provincial election and the results are in, David Eby's NDP majority has been confirmed by a judicial recount. Abigail Turner is following this in the Breaking News Center. Abigail, it is the slimmest of majorities.
It is, and in particular, a razor-thin race in Surrey-Guildford, where the recount there confirmed just how tight it was. Incumbent Gary Begg beating out the Conservatives by just 22 votes. The judicial recount confirming the NDP has won with an incredibly narrow victory. A recount also took place in Prince George Mackenzie as well as Kelowna Centre, both ridings electing Conservatives. It comes nearly 3 weeks since election night where no majority could be declared. And Nafisa, Premier Eby says he'll be swearing in his cabinet later this month on the 18th.
So that's what came out from mainstream media. Now, if we look what Sam Cooper dropped today, it says Premier Eby granted $20,000 to Advisors Diaspora Engagement Group ahead of NDP leadership race. So Charles Burton says, I'm troubled that a provincial government would provide a grant to an institution with apparent links to PRC's United Front. This image here, we can see David Eby sitting right there. We'll make that nice and big so everyone can see him there. This is in February 2018, David Eby and Ding Guo on the right attended the Friends of Wenzhou Society banquet with Chinese consul Tao Jiangling, yellow jacket, turned to the podium. So that's that one there. And to the right of Eby here, which is just off screen here, this is Ding Guo. It says Vancouver 2021 December, the then Attorney General David Eby approved a $20,000 grant to the Canada Committee 100 Society, a community organization led by Ding Guo, prominent journalist from Shanghai, ostensibly aimed at supporting anti-racism initiatives and engaging recent Chinese immigrants. The grant has since come under scrutiny from experts and the diaspora citizens due to the group's documented links to Beijing's United Front and political donors involved in Eby's 2022 NDP leadership. A government press release cited Mr. Ding, a personal friend and advisor to Premier Eby, who stated this project will help us gather detailed, relevant data on a wide scale. So clearly, David Eby has links here to China, and he's using our money to pay. This is disgraceful. This whole situation, this election just stinks of corruption. Is there anyone who isn't corrupt? When will all the rot be removed from Canada? That's a great question. This is greasy. Prison, 100%. Total crooks. Deport Eby to China. This is disgraceful. This guy needs to be kicked out. Next up, we're going to jump over to the House of Commons, where Jamil Javani, Conservative, absolutely roasts the Liberals on Tom Clark's $9 million condo Trudeau bought for him.
Madam Speaker, after 9 years, the Prime Minister has doubled the cost of housing and put an entire generation of Canadians through housing hell. Right. But who does he have any empathy for? His buddy from Bell Media, Tom Clark. The Prime Minister used $9 million of taxpayer money to purchase a luxury condo for Tom Clark in Manhattan, in a neighborhood called Billionaires Row. When will the NDP Liberals finally stop the abuse of taxpayer dollars and fire Tom Clark?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
While the Conservative members of Parliament are focused on distractions, we're focused on delivering housing for Canadians who live in this country. Madam Speaker, we are currently in a debate with the Conservatives based on their big commitment to cut billions of dollars from housing directly to communities right across this country.
If they really believed in this housing accelerator program, what they would do is just take an example and say, we're giving whatever, $2 million to this area in Nova Scotia, since that's where he's from. I'm sure he self-serves his community first, and then show how many houses that would help build the infrastructure for, and then show the increase in production of houses in Nova Scotia with that $2 million. The problem is it doesn't do that. It's not actually helping build homes faster. Otherwise, they would do that. Now, there are some circumstances where there's an example the other day in Prince Rupert where they have crumbling pipes and stuff that needs infrastructure money. And I'm sure it helps in those areas, but they're selling this as building more homes for Canadians faster to try to keep up with their ridiculous immigration numbers. Even their reduced immigration numbers are beyond ridiculous.
No, on this side of the House, that it takes investments to build housing so we can make it easier to build. We can make housing more affordable. What is the Conservative solution? Cut, cut, cut. Madam Speaker, we have a long history of Conservative cuts to housing. It's part of the reason we're facing a housing crisis today. We will make the investments necessary to deliver affordability to Canadians.
This guy just blamed the Conservatives before him for the housing crisis when really he opened the doors for millions of people. And then as housing minister, didn't do anything about the lack of housing. Imagine that. This guy's such a loser.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did hear the Liberal minister's answer, and I do feel bad for the Liberal minister because he's out here selling a generation that he is part of, a bunch of policies from the Prime Minister that have failed our time. They have failed our people, and he's got a tough job ahead of him to even rationalize what is going on in this government. But let's be very clear. Tom Clark, the Prime Minister's buddy from Bell Media, said that the housing he had in Manhattan required immediate replacement. This government then went on to spend $9 million of taxpayer money to get him a condo in Billionaires Row. When will they stop abusing the tax?
The Honourable Minister.
I hope I get equal time to answer that ridiculous question. In light of what has gone on this last week, Canadians are worried about our economy, we're worried about our relationship, and there's no time like the present to have a strong presence in the United States of America. Our representatives will be working extremely hard to protect Canadians' interests, Canadians' jobs every day. It's the cost.
Dude, you guys just cut the oil and gas emissions. You're going to be sending business down to America.
Cost of doing business, and we will do it well. We will represent Canadians' interests in New York City, the largest city in the United States of America. We will be there to ensure that Canada's interests are protected. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It's dumb. We don't need a $9 million condo, and you know it. They can buy something somewhere else for a tenth the cost. It doesn't have to be on Billionaires Row. It's only because Tom Clark wants to live there. Let's get real. We all know what's going on. Next up, we've got a story here coming from Charlottetown. Charlottetown, showing how building permit backlogs are basically pissing off the developers there.
Delays in getting building permits approved at City Hall are causing issues for some developers, slowing down commercial builds, apartment buildings, and even single-family homes. The Construction Association of PEI says some have been waiting months for approvals.
We're hearing from a number of our members about the extended time it takes to get a building permit or an occupancy permit. You know, I mean, we know things are very busy, like anybody and everybody today. People are understaffed, but we really need to find ways to expedite some of those processes.
Part of the reason is demand. Things are busy in Charlottetown with over 1,100 building permits approved in 2023. That's about 25% more than a decade ago.
Certainly a challenge when it comes to building permits at this time. And the city of Charlottetown, no different than any other city across Canada, is facing a shortage with building inspectors and planners.
Timelines are different for different kinds of buildings. It may take just a few weeks for a single-family home, but for larger projects, it can take months for approval. The city says it's working to speed up the process.
Through the city's participation in the Housing Accelerator Fund, part of the city's work plan is to introduce a more robust permitting system to establish those benchmarks.
Sanderson says approvals seem to have slowed down across the province with the latest version of the National Building Code. He says some municipalities are working on making things quicker.
You know, the numbers of the time frame has diminished, a fair bit in the province. They've had some new hires and expedited their process.
Right now, there are 2 building inspectors working with the city. City staff say that staffing is on par with bigger municipalities, but the city is working to hire another building inspector over the next year.
Seems like they need some sort of AI solution for building permits. Like it can scan the land, it uses AI, looks at the type of building, scans all these things, brings in all the information, then just approves all the easier ones at least, not maybe the harder ones. But because something like that, if the federal government did that, they could roll that out across Canada, and then you'd be putting up at least, single family homes a lot faster, especially if it's those wartime measure homes that are already pre-approved designs. Next up, we got this. It says German socialist government collapsed due to excessive debt and overspending on green energy, which ultimately chased major energy producing companies out of the country. Sound familiar to Canada? That's exactly what Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau are doing right now with those oil and gas emissions caps, 35%. They are going to wreck our country. I just put out the video the other day there about Daniel Smith absolutely ripping Trudeau and Guilbeault a new one on that. It will absolutely devastate us.
So let's head to Germany, where a political crisis has erupted. Germany's 3-party coalition has collapsed after ministers from the Free Democrats quit the government, likely paving the way for early elections next year. Their exit comes after German Chancellor Olaf Scholz sacked his finance minister. He said Christian Lindner, who leads the Free Democrats, had broken his trust too often, making serious government work impossible.
Too often, after the necessary compromises have been drowned out by publicly staged disputes and loud ideological demands. Too often, Federal Minister Lindner has blocked laws in an irrelevant manner. Too often, he has engaged in petty party political tactics. Too often, he has broken my trust. He even unilaterally withdrew from the budget agreement after we had already agreed on it in lengthy negotiations. There is no basis of trust for further cooperation. Serious government work is not possible in this way.
And as mentioned, this is expected to trigger a general election in Germany early next year, leaving a void at the heart of Europe, just as concern is growing in EU capitals over what a second Trump presidency will mean for transatlantic relations. Let's go live to Berlin now, speak to our correspondent there, Damien McGuinness. Good morning to you, Damien. So presumably lots of reaction this morning. It was quite a dramatic day yesterday.
Yeah, and that was a scathing attack, wasn't it, by Chancellor Scholz on his own finance minister. That's unprecedented in modern German politics, to have a chancellor be so critical, so openly, of one of his own ministers. And I think for a long time now, we've realised this government wasn't going to last the full course. It wasn't quite clear what would happen, when the end would come, but I think it has been clear for a while that the end was nigh. And what we've now seen, really, essentially, it's a conflict over ideological differences between how to get the German economy going. You have 2 very different camps within the coalition government, and one of them was led by Chancellor Scholz, is centre-left Social Democrats, supported by the Greens. What they believe, they want to loosen Germany's tough and strict constitutional rules against taking on new debt. They want more borrowing in order to help Ukraine, to get the economy going, to invest in infrastructure. Chancellor Lindner, ex-finance minister now, Christian Lindner, who leads a free market liberal party, he has the exact opposite approach. He says, no, you need to cut taxes, you need to limit borrowing, and that's how you're going to get the economy going. And of course, those two positions now appear irreconcilable. And that's essentially why the government has fallen apart.
Wow, that's chaos in Germany here. Woke till you're broke. Similarities for sure, OTT spending on green and Ukraine. But our Canadian PM is committed. He won't quit, and he'll take his ministers and our country down with him. At least the German chancellor knows when to tap the brakes. This would be US if Harris were elected. The Canadian Liberal Socialist Marxist government collapse needs to happen soon for the well-being of Canadians. So with all the struggles in Canada, what are they doing in Toronto with this absolute joke of a mayor, Olivia Chow? They're unveiling Taylor Swift Way. She was born and raised in Toronto, right? No. She's from the South, the American South. She has nothing to do with Toronto.
In less than 2 weeks, Taylor Swift will arrive in Toronto with her Eras Tour to perform 6 sold-out shows at the Rogers Centre. It's a big deal for fans, local businesses, and city officials, including
our Swiftie Mayor, Olivia Chow, the Mayor of Swifttown.
That's Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey introducing Chow this morning as they unveiled the first of 22 temporary Swiftie-centric street signs.
The City of Toronto is declaring the route that connects City Hall and Rogers Centre as the Taylor Swift Way.
Officials say the red and black signs will give everyone in Toronto a chance to experience the Eras Tour, whether they have tickets or not. And taxpayers won't be on the hook for anything. Rogers is footing the bill, and the signs will all be auctioned off in December to raise money for the Daily Bread Food Bank. Lauren O'Neill, Global News.
Okay, so it's temporary, but I think this is dumb. I think this is a waste of time. They should get back to actually doing real stuff, fixing real problems for people. Let's check out some memes. Did you know the majority of our border with USA is unmanned with absolutely no physical barrier other than clear-cut line? That is true. I've seen it multiple places when I've gone out backpacking. It's quite literally like a lot of places you can't even tell. You're just looking at the map. Up in the mountains, there isn't a border. It's just you look on your GPS. Only in Toronto, folks. Nova Scotia principal deeply sorry for requesting no uniforms on Remembrance Day. What an idiot. Maybe this guy should be fired. Canada right now, chuckles in danger. Mr. Speaker. It's been a long time since I've seen this episode. Billionaires emit more CO2 in 90 minutes than the average person does in a lifetime. Interesting. There you have it. That dirtbag David Eby. You know, dirty connections to China. How many of our elected officials have connections to China? What's going to happen with this? Is he actually going to continue to run our government here in British Columbia? It's ridiculous. At the very least, with election this close, there should be some sort of rule where another election has to be called within 12 months if two parties are so close in the amount of votes they have. To have another 4 years of David Eby destroying our economy, give me a break. If this little Weasley rat David Eby has connections with China, what are the odds Justin Trudeau does?